as a business to be successful, we all know that you have to be focused. You have to make your processes more efficient. Focus, focus, focus. And I don't like to be focused. That's why I make these teams that are super focused on what they have to do. So that's why I believe, it has been a good run for those companies. So the moment they become too big, I split them up, and then it goes from there.
Welcome to Entrepreneurism. I'm your host, Scott Pollack, a seasoned business leader, entrepreneur, and CEO coach with a passion for helping others achieve success in their entrepreneurial journeys. On this show, we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, uncovering why so many struggle and revealing what the most successful do differently. True entrepreneurs have unique superpowers, including the ability to spot hidden business opportunities and convert them into thriving ventures. For most mere mortals, this ability is absolutely unfathomable. But these same strengths can become sources of struggle, whether it's pursuing multiple opportunities without losing focus, scaling without eroding culture, or balancing short-term demands with long-term vision. The entrepreneur's journey is full of tensions. Here we explore critical factors that drive entrepreneurial success: how to stay focused, manage resources, build strong teams, and develop the resilience to navigate the ups and downs of the journey. Bold ideas, candid conversations, and insights that will help you unlock your full potential. Ready to learn and grow, expand your toolkit, and discover actionable strategies to help you navigate your own entrepreneurism? Let's dive in. On today's show, I'm excited to have my friend David Holvoet, a 30-year veteran entrepreneur in the forestry and wood product space. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Scott.
So a little more introduction for the listeners. David, who is Belgian, came to Shanghai almost 30 years ago. He's founded 3 businesses and acquired a 4th. Together, these businesses are doing $50 million in revenue with operations in Belgium, France, Turkey, Latvia, China, and Vietnam, supplying raw lumber, plywood, doors, and construction services. Just a few different things there. So most of my guests so far have been in some form of tech, but I'm really excited to have David, who's built a thriving business, or actually I should say thriving businesses, focused on one of the most basic commodities, wood. So David, perhaps you can talk briefly about how you started your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, well, for this, we have to go back really to my university time. So when I was in university in Belgium, we had actually 2 options. We could either write a final paper or we could do a project. So a friend of mine and me, we decided we are going to sell consultancy businesses to Belgium SMEs and a consultancy firm actually doing market research in China. So what we did is we would team up a Belgium student with a student from Fudan University, so make like a duo, who would do market research during 1 month for a Belgium SME and then come back with a report after being 1 month in the field in China. So that's how I actually started my little consultancy firm when I was still in university and avoiding having to write a final paper. So that was good. And actually, the money was also great because the Belgium student was not paid, the Chinese student was not paid, and actually the consultancy business was being paid for this SMEs. So we had a great time in the early days in Shanghai with all those students also partying a lot and also working on our consultancy services. That was actually my first time I came to China. And I also took one consultancy job. And that was actually for a wood veneer company from Belgium who wanted to develop the market for veneers in China. And everywhere I went, the Chinese consumers or the Chinese manufacturers said, "We are not interested in your veneer, but do you have logs? Do you have trees? We want trees. We want raw materials." And then, as I said, I was in my final year. I could again do 2 things. I could go and look for a job, or I could go and look for logs and raw materials in Europe. And that's exactly what I did. So I started out and trying to find raw materials in Europe. And since I had no money, I actually started as an agent for a German producer or a forestry owner actually who wanted to sell his logs to China.
Hmm.
And that's how I started. That's my first venture as an agent selling logs to China. And, what was really nice about that is that the German company had absolutely no idea about the potential of the Chinese market. So they said, okay, if this young boy of 21 wants to do it, let's give him the exclusivity. We give him whole of China, who cares? China is such a small market. We don't care. So they signed a nice exclusivity agreement for me that actually paid off very, very well. And the conditions I could negotiate were great. So that's how I made my first step into the business with actually no money, but they gave me an opportunity as an agent.
Wow. So from field study directly into a real business, consultancy services, and then a trade business, and then you went further and started building other businesses on top of that. How'd that happen?
Yeah. So this is actually a good question, Scott. So what happened is, to going back to this lumber business, it took off so fast. I was selling lumber produced by this German factory into China, and we were doing 10 containers, 20 containers, 30 containers, and I was really getting very cocky. I became, now in hindsight, I have to say, I became very arrogant. So I wanted more, but I had this exclusivity. I could not represent anybody else selling beech lumber into China. But then I had already made some money. And what I did actually, with that money, I started buying logs. So a same product, but a different category, which was not under the exclusivity contract. But this time, not as an agent, but as a pure trader, buying and selling with my own money. And again, this went up and up and up. I think at the high moment of the business there, I was selling 30 containers of lumber and 300 containers of logs that I was trading with my own money. I had my office, I think Shanghai, Jin'an Temple. My office was in Universal Mansion, 17th floor, looking down on the temple, feeling on top of the world, really. Now, what happened then was not so nice. Suddenly, in 1999, the biggest storm ever hit Europe. And what this did was that it killed almost 17 million cubic meters of trees, all falling down. Now, when trees falling down in the forest, you have to actually extract them very quickly, otherwise they rot and they have zero value anymore. So what happened is enormous volume of wood was coming into the market. And where did Europe want to get rid of all this wood? They were dumping it on China, So
Hmm.
in my arrogance, in my, wrong learnings that the market was always up, I bought too much. And now suddenly I was tied to this contract that I had to fulfill. And all my customers were running away because the market was just crashing.
Mhm.
Then I had to give up my beautiful office in Jinan. I had to start selling cars in Europe, reassess what my future would look like. And that's actually why that's one of my fundamental thinking in business, that I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. And that's why at that moment I started looking for other ventures to develop. I'm proud to say that we continue to do that raw material business until today. I have not given up, but immediately after the crash of the lumber business, I started looking in the other side. And then the second thing that I did I was looking not for import raw materials into China, but actually trying to export something. So we started exporting plywood,
Mm.
which I sourced from Shandong province. And here also, again, every time you enter into a new business, you have a lot of learnings. Again, it looked fantastic, beautiful prices, fantastic margins. The plywood looked nice, but I had not enough knowledge. And then when we ship it to China, to Europe, people started using these panels, sawing them, and they all delaminated, meaning they opened.
Right,
So
right.
it was
Fell apart.
just crazy. Yeah, they fell apart. And again, we had to overcome, and we had to not give up, being resilient, you know, also benefit from the learnings, because this is something that for me now has become very important. If you have to absorb the lesson, you better benefit from it, right? So if I have to deal with all these problems, if I have to deal with all these issues, well, why not learn from it so that you can actually improve and become better? So
Mhm.
that's why I didn't want to give up, because now I had the knowledge of how not to do it. So that's why we continued. And until today, I'm still shipping plywood from China. It is actually in terms of turnover now, the biggest business unit with 10 people. We do almost 20 million euro of plywood every year. So that was the second business that I actually started. And then, there have been flooring factories that I started in 2004, closed in 2012. That was production. So now I said I will never go into production anymore. I mean, we should dedicate a podcast to that alone. Uh, so the production was something it's difficult for me to master. And then we went into door manufacturing and door exports, and so that's how all the business actually evolved naturally. But
Interesting.
the early days were very volatile. Yeah.
So by the way, for those who are not as well versed, what's the difference between production, as you were talking about it, with regard to, let's say, flooring, and door manufacturing, um, which certainly sounds
Okay.
like a
Yeah. So
production of sorts.
yeah. Yeah. So sorry that actually, if you go across all my companies, what I'm saying to my management all the time is, we try not to make anything except money. Okay. So because manufacturing is so unpredictable, so many things can go wrong if you actually own the plant. Um, it is very, very, very hard to actually make money. And I think today a manufacturer is not rewarded for all the investments he's doing. So I have never been able to really be very, very profitable in a manufacturing business, except for once, where the product was always the same. Henry Ford, anything you want, as long as it's always the same. That is the only way I want to go in production. So I had a flooring plant from 2004 to 2012, real manufacturing, owning the assets, the machines, etc. And there we were making money, but only because we made 10 years the same product, the same dimension, the same lacquering, the same width, the same box, everything
Okay.
the same, and we could really make it efficient. And then we were making money. But the moment you need to be flexible and having different products, I never been able to make money from that. So I will never go into manufacturing anymore.
Okay.
Just like I would never go to an F&B, Scott, because I also used to have a bar and a restaurant in China. So that's also another podcast.
That one I know a little bit better. My brother's in the F&B space, and yes, that one's a tough
A
one.
tough one. Yeah,
So
exactly.
so I take it then that you're outsourcing, for instance, with the doors. Then you're outsourcing the
Yes,
manufacturing. Okay,
yes, yes, yes.
and
So what I do try to own is for example, the IP, but it's not so easy to copy. For example, in Europe, you need to have a license to produce fire rated doors, and that investment is really takes a lot of it costs up to €500,000 to get all the permits to be able to make fire rated doors. But then what I do different from my counterparts in Europe, they would produce it in their own plant, but I don't do that. I use the license, and I actually subcontract the license to others. For example, in Turkey, and if Turkey is not beneficial anymore, then I would go to Latvia, or we are super flexible compared to my counterparts. But if I would not own the IP of making a fire rated doors, then I have no real added value. But I try to invest in things what really bring value to the client and to our company.
cool. So like many of my guests, I think you share the entrepreneurial superpower of being able to see these opportunities, and then of course the grit to stick with it even when you've had your fair share of sizable challenges. One of the things that I wanted to drill a little bit into is you've built these four enterprises, or three, and purchased the last one, to a pretty sizable business overall, 50 million in revenue, but done so with relatively few employees, people that are in your business. And talk a little bit about that, because I think there's something there that that has also been part of the magic of what you've been able to build.
Yeah. So once I realized that I did not want to have all my eggs in one basket, I had to I had to actually build teams that could work independently because it was impossible for me to still import my logs and be involved with that all the time and then trying to export plywood to Europe. So from the very early beginning, I started implementing systems and putting people in place. And then what I always say is, structure, implement, and delegate. And then I let it be. So I always try to form very small teams. I think a good team for me is anything between 10 to 15 people, and if there is too many side businesses, then I actually would split it up, because the way we have the reason we have three business plus one today is really because initially it was one company, and then I see, hey, that does not work because the flows. I think you once gave a workshop on this. The working process, it doesn't work anymore. We cannot optimize this. We cannot automate this kind of thing. So then it naturally splits because it becomes two
Hmm.
units. Exporting is totally different from importing. So I cannot streamline that. All those processes are all over the place. So I like very clean processes, very, very clean structures. And then I delegate it to people who can make their decisions by themselves. They feel ownership because they are seen as the general manager of the company. I mean, all my managers, if you would ask the outside world, they would all believe that they're owners, that they are actually
Hmm.
the owner. I mean, one of my mantras is also to pour vivre heureux, on doit vivre caché. It's a French sentence that says to live happily, you have to actually live a little bit hidden. So I always put my people in the front, so they get the ownership, they get the reward of being the business. And I also believe this is smart management, because you would never try to hire an owner away from his business, right? So also
Yeah.
to retaining those people is for me very, very, very good. But I don't even have to do that. This is not the reason I do, because they want to be part of it. They feel it's their ownership, so that makes them very, very, very fast to adopt, and it's also they're very lean. And also, what is also important for me is that as a typical entrepreneur, for me, it's very difficult to focus on one business. But I want those small businesses to be super laser focused on what they have to do.
Hmm.
And initially, I was frustrated because as an entrepreneur, you like to do other things, but because I put this laser focus in one company, it gives me the freedom not to be focused, which I enjoy trying to new things. But as a business to be successful, we all know that you have to be focused. You have to make your processes more efficient. Focus, focus, focus. And I don't like to be focused. That's why I make these teams that are super focused on what they have to do. So that's why I believe, yeah, it has been a good run for those companies. So the moment they become too big, I split them up, and then it goes from there.
I love that. And there's so many different, I would say, key concepts that you've mentioned in describing that. I mean, from the the optimal team being 12 or 15 people, which is sort of the Amazon two pizzas rule. Once it's the team's too large to split two pizzas, then it's more than one team. Onto how do you get accountability? I mean, if you've got these general managers that really own their business. I love that. And indeed the retention, not only do they have ownership in the sense that they're accountable and you're holding them accountable, but they actually get the face. Here we are in China. And that's an important concept that they're, to the outside world, this is their business. So I mean, there's so many different ways that I think that makes tremendous sense, and it's clearly worked really, really well for you across these businesses. And the last one, by the way, that occurs to me is you mentioned that you like being the visionary. You like to be able to look at new opportunities and to identify those. But you've kind of got these integrators as general managers who, like the laser focus and the execution aspect, which I think is another way to think about, how do you make it work? So super,
Yeah,
super
and
cool.
what I like about the fact that they are independent units is because I learn things from one unit and I can actually implement it to another because they're all different. One is this distribution, the other one is international trading, the other one is manufacturing, one is import in China, one is export in China. But in every management meeting, I learn things that actually make sense to be used in another company. So this is also so valuable. For example, Holvoet is really a Belgium manufacture and installation of furnishing. So imagine you have a hotel and then you need the rooms to be furnished with furniture. We would buy the furniture in Belgium and then we would install it. But now because I'm internationally engaged, we start doing this in Latvia. I have to push my GMs out of their comfort zone and say, look, we're gonna source this. We're gonna actually not source this in Belgium anymore. We're gonna outsource this. And this for those businesses, this is so not done. They're so traditional. And this is also gives them the competitive advantage that my competitors that do not have. So that also gives us the special angle.
Yeah, no, that's
To be able to use the things that you have from the different businesses.
yeah, as a group, that's stronger than any one business would have been. No, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. Very cool. So let's go back to one of the key concepts that I try to hit on um, in this podcast, which is, you know, your own personal struggles as an entrepreneur. Um, you know, your path here, all the way, from being a student to launching your first businesses and then building businesses on top of that. Uh, it's very clear what your superpowers have been. I'm sure there's more that we haven't hit on, but what would you say was your greatest personal struggle?
And I think the biggest personal struggle, and it's still today, is keep giving trust to people because
Mm,
I can give you so many examples, Scott, about being hurt from people that you really, really trusted. Going from somebody who is setting up his own business parallel to mine, abusing my suppliers, abusing my logistic system, to having a partner who actually run away with money. And trust is such a fundamental
yeah,
aspect of doing business. And if you're not able to give it anymore because you have been teach so many tough lessons, is until today still I think one of the most difficult. I'm more easy to give trust now because I have had also so many good experiences because you always remember
mm,
the bad things, but there's also been a lot of people that actually were trustworthy. But that's difficult, not to lose the ability to give trust and let people run with it, because without that you cannot have people on 5 continents and not know what they do. I cannot control anymore what my GMs are doing or what my buyer is doing running around in the forest in France. I
yeah,
cannot check his time schedule. So giving this trust, I am very skeptical. I'm very easy to give trust, I think, but from the moment I feel that something is not wrong, I will be much faster to react and speak out. Before I was not sure. I would just challenge them now. I don't feel comfortable with this because of this and this and this reason. I don't think you are trustworthy at this moment. What is going on? I would actually ask them, are you setting up your own business or are you doing other things? Really calling them out if I feel that that is true. And before I would think that this is already showing my distrust, but now I'm just immediately ventilate how I feel so that we can address it. But that's probably my biggest struggle. And even today.
Interest. I mean, it's first of all, the first thing that strikes me is clearly you've set up a structure across all these businesses where you've had to trust these key leaders that you've installed. Uh, as you said, you can't possibly keep tabs on everything they're doing. And at the same time, I like that illustration of it's almost, to use Kim Scott's words, radical candor. That if you're going to be able to continue to have trust in these people, that you need to be totally candid with them and open. And you've obviously found people who are able to work within that kind of culture where they can be open with you, I suppose, as well, right? Two-way street. So
Absolutely. No, they have no, absolutely, Scott, because I have also made mistakes. So one of the mistakes that I regret the most is that remuneration schedule. So I thought, because in one business we have two GMs, right? So and they assumed that they both had the same compensation. And I did not contradict them. I let them believe. I mean, I did not lie. I mean, I would never lie, but I did not contradict them. So they were under the assumption that we would earn the same. And then the obviously the general manager, or because they in partnership, found out that he actually got paid less than the other.
mhm.
I mean, for the obvious reasons, because he joined only 4 years later, et cetera, et cetera. But he felt that actually I've broken his trust, and I very much regret that now. So now I don't think I have to be transparent about everything,
Sure.
but I should not have let him on that it was that it was ego. That this is the mistake I made. So now I'm saying, look, what I pay the other person is none of your business. Focus on what you get, but this I had to learn. So I also grew in that sense. But yes, we are super open, and I also try to spend a lot of time with them. That there's really this base, and that we are trying, that we can be brutally honest with each other. That's what we call it. Is
Yeah.
not trying to go round in circles, but really attack the issue at hand.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, high performing teams anywhere, but certainly leadership teams have to be able to be brutally honest. Otherwise, you can't possibly get to that level of performance that you want. When people are, I mean, the opposite, of course, is when people are playing politics and they're hoarding information, and all that stuff's cancerous. So, yeah, no, I like that. Well, amazing, as I expected. These are really great stories, and they illustrate a lot of, I think, what you've gone through, obviously, in a very short period of time here in this discussion. I want to do a quick entrepreneur hacks segment, just some quick fire
Okay.
questions. What's one book every entrepreneur should read?
I can call a few, but you have the lean startup. You probably know this.
Absolutely.
And then Blue Ocean is something I've read a long time ago, but I think not a very famous book, and I'm sure you even don't know it. And it's not really a book; it's just a few pointers. What I like is how to make big money in your small business. It's something I read like 20 odd years ago, and it has so many things that I still live by. For example, one of the things in the book is you have to protect against STD. It's not STD what you think about, but
Yeah.
it's a success transmitted disease. So that success is actually going to your head, and that you don't stay resilient anymore, and that you forget to be very smart about your decisions, that you need to be frugal, that you have to save for the rainy day in a business. So I think that's very, very, very important. I also live by another thing that is in that book is pay steak and eat sausage. I believe for
Uh,
good people, I pay more than what I pay myself, which I think is very important. Very important. I mean, later, of course, the dividend and the profit is coming, but the thing is, in order to have good people on your team, you have to be willing to sacrifice sometimes a little bit of, in the short term, your own remuneration, and give them. So there's a lot of things in that book that have a
yeah.
penny saver. For example, is also something that I find very, very interesting, having somebody who's really, really frugal about this another thing in the book is buy today's technology tomorrow. It's also something I live by. That is so important to me that I'm never going to be the first one who enter. I will watch out for evolutions in tech, but I will not never be the first mover
Right.
because
You're
it's
not the
always
you're not
too
that one.
expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's too expensive. There's still bugs in there. So I'm always the second.
Okay.
I do believe in automation, but I will never be the first one to
Well,
adopt.
I'm gonna have to check out that book. You're right. I wasn't familiar with it. I love the don't succumb to success, because I think that's a mantra that I've heard certainly from several other thought leaders, and indeed, that's where companies sometimes crumble under their own weight, um, because they stop innovating. What's one thing you do every morning to set yourself up for success,
Well,
or night?
I even did it this morning. So sometimes it's difficult to get up, right? So I pretend to be a racket. So you launch a rocket, you say 3, 2, 1, go, and then it's so easy to get up, because sometimes you're like, should I take another 15 minutes or something? So I get up every morning at 5:30, and sometimes you think, would it hurt if I continue to sleep until 6? But I would say 3, 2, 1, go, and then you're up. So it's
Okay.
easy to get launched. So, and then yeah, trying to. So this is probably something I had to learn. um, I was only working and not taking care of myself, but now I do exercise almost every morning, and I do it the first thing in the morning, because otherwise
Yeah.
sometimes you don't get to it. But I felt guilty, because in the past I was thinking, exercise, I should better working. But now I have rewired my thinking, and I see it as I have to take care of the machine, because otherwise I will not be
Yeah.
able to continue. And you also
That's
oil
for
your
sure.
machine in your factory to keep going. So that's why I can take away the guilt for not working in my business, that this is actually super necessary for me to do. So that's how I
Absolutely.
set up myself for the day.
Absolutely. Your oxygen mask first. If you're not in good shape, you're not going to be any good to your people. Now, for sure. What's a tool or app you can't live without?
Well, like I said, I'm not such a tech guy, but for me, my calendar is my one device I cannot miss, because it determines everything. And actually it even determines my business, because everything is built around daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly meetings,
Yep.
and it determines the
The rhythm.
cadence. It
Yeah.
determines the rhythm of my company, and it also determines the discipline of my own personal life. And I live by it. It's and I've been teach this by people in EO, entrepreneurs organization, but I find freedom in it.
Yeah.
It's not, it
Oh,
gives me a lot of
I'm with
freedom,
you.
because I don't need to be.
I'm
Yeah,
with you. I preach that every day. So yeah, no, for sure. You're not alone.
yeah.
Having the calendar is one of those key tools. Uh, what daily habit keeps you grounded? You already mentioned exercise, but I don't know if you've got anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say walking my wife, but it's walking my dog and my wife. So we would go we would go every day on a half-hour stroll, and it is one of those things that that keep me connected to my wife, but also really, you just walking and you talk about your day, and everything becomes much more less important. Then then you focus more on your family and on your normal happiness, and it's a great way to end the day. Also, I like it very much. Yeah. And I think also one of my, so to go back to your earlier question, I still want to mention that. So one of my superpowers is probably my relationship, because
Mm,
so I have done crazy things. There have been months, Scott, that I didn't know how to pay my staff, etc. But the foundation at home was always right. We always had, because Christine was also a provider. My Christine is my
yep.
wife, so
Yep.
I would never have to worry about Will I be able to send my kids to school? Will there be money enough to pay for food or rent? We always had this kind of super balance between me taking risks and going after a bigger success, and Christine being there as a constant provider and stability for the family. So these two together has been a blessing. So it has just been, yeah, that is probably my superpower, because I could be crying in my office and go home and it would be fine.
Yeah.
I did not have to worry. So that is, and I see a lot of entrepreneurs that have to do it alone. And I think, oh my, that is hard.
It is.
Then I have had no real hardship, because
Mm.
I always had somebody who had my back.
I can totally relate. And yeah, that's amazing. Having someone strong as your domestic partner, but as we know, being entrepreneurs, your life and your business and everything else blends together. So Christine, that's awesome. Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. Last question here. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Okay, so actually I have two favorites. One favorite is, in order to multiply in business, you first have to be able to divide.
Mm.
And this is so powerful, because divide means dividing the profits you made. It means dividing the responsibilities. It means dividing the eggs in different baskets. It so relates to me. And so in order to be able to multiply success, you have to learn how to divide. Some people cannot divide what they have. They want everything for themselves, so they will not be able to multiply. So this is one thing. And then another thing, and I can give so many examples that I have actually practiced, is never waste a good crisis. Is probably one of those things. And it's so important to me, because it sets you up for the right mindset. Ah, there's a crisis. Oh, you can panic, or you can say, hey, there's a crisis. What are the opportunities? How can I flip this around and make it beneficial to myself? If I don't know if you have time, but I can share an example for this, for which I'm particularly proud at this moment. So Europe
Yeah, go
Europe
for it.
announced an anti-dumping. We don't have time.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and share
Okay,
it.
okay. So there's Europe announced an anti-dumping investigation against imports of Chinese plywood, right? So they want to ban Chinese plywood from the European market, and this is killing my business, honestly. But what we have done is, as Treecraft, my company, I have united all the importers in Europe to make an alliance, a group, so to speak, against the European Union. And this, as a marketing event for my company, I was unknown. We are a smaller player. We do 20 million, but the bigger ones do 200 million. Suddenly, I have positioned myself as a leader in the industry, and it has opened so many doors. Before, people didn't want to talk to us, and now it has opened so many doors. And again, making from a crisis something that is utterly positive for my company, and this gives me the energy to look for this kind of things in every crisis.
I I love that. It reminds me, of Jim Collins and Great by Choice has this concept return on luck, and he talks about the research they've done that the best companies don't have any better luck than the companies that didn't do as well. In some cases, they even had worse luck. But really, what set them apart was the return on the luck that they got. So you get good luck. Okay, how do you squeeze a little more out of it? You get bad luck. How do you, as you said, you turn a crisis into an opportunity? I really love that, and certainly as you and I were discussing earlier before the podcast with the Trump tariffs. Here's a crisis that I think a lot of people are going to have to figure out how to turn into opportunity. And this is around the world. So with that, David, I really appreciate you joining the show today. Thank you.
Yeah, I was happy to share. It was a nice talk. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. And to my listeners, we've got many more amazing guests lined up. Please subscribe, leave feedback, and share the episode in your feeds. Thanks for listening. Remember, entrepreneurship isn't just about spotting opportunities. It's about taking disciplined action to bring them to life. Hope you'll join again next time as we continue to unpack the complexities of entrepreneurism.